2020 FBI intel memo warning that China might have been sending fake driver's licenses in to create fake mail-in ballots to help Joe Biden win. There's a busting headline in here. When the FBI called this back, so they have this intel, it's corroborated by licenses that are intercepted by Customs and Border Border Protection in Chicago, but they call it back anyways and decide we're just not going to investigate this because this would look good for Trump, bad for Biden. They ask all intelligence agencies to destroy the intelligence report that the FBI actually sent them. As a Federal Records Act, you're not supposed to do that, but they wanted it destroyed. Why? Because they probably didn't want it to leak out before the election that China preferred Joe Biden over Donald Trump. 60 Minutes aired a piece with the head of the Homeland Security Cybersecurity Division saying there were no foreign intrusions in the 2020 election. It was a perfectly clean election, he said. I think it was Chris Krebs was his name. We now know that to have been a false proclamation. First, we know a year later in 21, a bunch of Iranians were indicted in Manhattan on charges that they interfered in the election and hacked into a state database to obtain voter IDs and use them in a mal-influence operation against the American election.
Well, we did subpoena Mike Frontera, Dominion's lawyer, but they found a way to not let us have our witnesses. What Jenna did, though, that since at least June, those BIOS passwords, 670 of them, from 63 counties out of the 64 counties in Colorado, have been on the public website for the Secretary of State, which means they were out there for anybody to grab.
Anyway.
She should be locked up, and they should throw away the key and let me loose.
Yeah, we need a prisoner swap.
Yeah, for sure.
So you think that this election in Colorado was definitely compromised because of the leaked passwords?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
I mean, in Mesa County, they were finding fraudulent ballots. They were finding the same person was signing the ballot envelopes, and they brushed it off like it was nothing. And as a matter of fact, what Jenna Griswold did with the passwords, she knew while I was going through the trial that was out there and did nothing.
So those passwords were leaked out there during your trial before your sentencing?
They were out there since June, but she knew about it and didn't tell the clerks about it. And now she's apologizing to the clerks. She should apologize to the American people, or at least the people in Colorado. But there are other passwords besides just for Colorado, I've heard, for the United States in there for Dominion machines. So
you think some of our other elections in other states could be compromised because of leaked passwords for the Dominion machines?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what's going on with the cartel in Arizona and Michigan. And, you know, I was so happy when I saw Florida for Trump and all these other places. But just remember, Dominion's headquarters is in Colorado, Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
And also, most people don't know that Dominion is out of Serbia as well. And then and if you can play that video by Gary Brunson,
yeah,
the 30-year CIA whistleblower, you will, or look at the transcript, you'll see exactly how this all started with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And that's why this stuff with Patrick Byrne and all that's coming out, it leads all the way back to Venezuela and then the corruption worldwide.
Now we know there was a second country that was more deeply involved in meddling into the election. The FBI in August 2020, so 3.5 months before the votes were cast that put Joe Biden in the presidency, that FBI believed that China had begun a mass operation to produce fake U.S. driver's licenses, move them to the United States, and have Chinese citizens here on our soil, both legally and illegally, go out and get fake mail-in ballots and vote to try to elect Joe Biden. By the way, the FBI intelligence says this Chinese operation from a Chinese intelligence source that the FBI was handling was designed to help Joe Biden beat Donald Trump. It's very important. That was the intention.
Sensational video and photo evidence has emerged exposing a factory in Guangdong producing 500,000 blank American ballots. The Gateway Pundit, an online news publication, confirmed that the video was provided by Vanessa A. Olivides, a third-generation member of the Chinese Communist Party. Vanessa tweeted on November 9 that the printing plant in Guangdong, China, was printing out fake ballots, which were then mailed to Canada and Mexico under the name of medical supplies between August and October 2020, and from there flown into the United States. The released video of the phone call to a Chinese manufacturer requesting a bulk order of fake US 2020 ballots has been revealed by the Gateway Pundit. Here is the translated recording between the caller and the ballot printing company.
对啊，因为你仔细看一下，它那个选票的那个印刷是不一样的。
那个没关系，我会看着那个图片来做这边。
然后到时候你们这边发物流的话怎么发？因为我这边订的话就是大量的订这样子。
大量订那个发物流的话，一般也好像也要好几天哦，物流比较慢。
发国际可以吗？
我看一下，发国际好像也是走物流啊。
可以走是吧？
The intelligence was strong enough to send out to all of the intelligence agencies, and then a few days later it was called back on the auspices that they wanted to re-interview the source. Now, the source was re-interviewed a second time, stuck to his story. In the meantime, the Customs and Border Patrol, Border Protection Agency, intercepted 20,000 of these fake driver's IDs, essentially corroborating the intelligence. But the Biden administration, the Chris Wray FBI, they simply covered this up. And for 5 years, we were kept in the dark until this intelligence document was sent last night to Chuck Grassley from Kash Patel. China saw mail-in ballots as an enormous vulnerability during the COVID-19 pandemic, our enemies look for weaknesses, not for strengths. They don't look for the hardest thing to do; they look for the easiest thing to do to us. That is a warning sign. Now, lots has happened since 2020, and with all of the voter ID and other things, we've tightened up laws in several states. And where we've tightened up the laws in the states, people vote more because they have greater confidence in the system. But China saw this as an exploitable operation, and I think that should concern all of us. And in any state that doesn't have their mail-in voting to the proximal best security measures, there's a foreign enemy looking to exploit it right now.
This morning, HSI Miami, along with our state and federal partners, FDLE, DSS, and USCIS, arrested a permanent resident who is a Haitian national and a convicted aggravated felon. He was arrested for unlawful voting and casting a false ballot.
This evidence demonstrates, and it's through eyewitness testimony that's been corroborated by others through their eyewitness statements, that 130,000 to 280,000 completed ballots for the 2020 general election were shipped from Bethpage, New York to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where those ballots and the trailer in which they were shipped disappeared.
What happened on October 21st was a series of unusual events that cannot be a coincidence. I know I saw ballots with return addresses filled out, thousands of them, thousands, loaded onto my trailer in New York and headed for Pennsylvania. At first, I didn't think it was a big deal. In fact, I thought it was really awesome. I really did. I was like, sweet, I'm doing something for the presidential race. This is cool. But as things became weirder, I got to thinking and wondered why I was driving complete ballots from New York to Pennsylvania. I didn't know why, so I decided to speak up. And that's what I'm doing today.
At this point in time, we have already confirmed tens of thousands of fake voters, of illegally cast ballots, and I'm speaking about the November 3rd election. And think of how that would affect the down ballot voting also. We're talking senators, congressmen, local elections. It's affecting all the ballots.